He's editor-in-chief of Breitbart News and a New York Times best-selling author. And on this podcast, he brings deep research, prescient analysis, and world-class guests. He's Alex Marlow, and this is the Alex Marlow Show.
Well, the Marlow Show, I'm glad you're here. Hope all of you had a great Thanksgiving. I certainly did. I gotta say, I spent a lot of time in my kitchen. I think that's what you do on Thanksgiving. But I like to make comments to my family, particularly my wife, about things that I didn't expect about becoming a grown-up. And very high on my list is how much time I would spend in the kitchen. There's a lot of kitchen time that's going on between the cooking and the cleaning and the child maintenance, a lot of kitchen time, but overall it's good. It's better than computer time, right? I mean, it feels more real than all the time just stuck online. I did something I've never done before where the turkey was done early. The turkey was done before the sides. And then I made a crucial mistake, and I'm going to tell this to all of you so you don't do the same thing. So the turkey's probably done maybe 20 to 30 minutes earlier than it should have been to time up with the sides. And so I attempted to heat some of it up. So I didn't carve it for an hour, but by the time I carved it, it was kind of starting to get cold. And so I warmed it up. But what that did is it tightened up all the meat. So the meat's got to relax. And there's not a lot of margin for error with the turkey because let's face it, it's not the best. I like doing it. I think it's a fun project because I'm ambitious with the way to cook the meats. But overall, a turkey is tough to do, and you got to be perfect, and then you got to get great gravy and great cranberry sauce. Don't do the canned cranberry sauce. Homemade is not that hard. You can do it. And I should post some recipes up here. I'm going to do that, I think. We'll make that a project for 2026 so all of you can get some recipes going. But I should not have done that. So I kind of tightened up the meat. And I noticed this when I had the leftover Thanksgiving themed sandwich the following day, which is arguably better than the Thanksgiving plate, is the same Thanksgiving sandwich. When you get the stuffing and the cranberry sauce and the gravy and the turkey on the same piece of bread, and I got the whole wheat bread went to the nice bakery to get it. Man, that was good. Unbelievable experience to have that. But the meat all relaxed at that point. So it was relaxed again. So that was, look, you live and learn. You know, you only get one crack at the turkey every year. And onward and upward from here. I did finally accomplish one of my New Year's resolutions that some of you will remember this. And I will do another New Year's resolution show at the beginning of the year, I promise. But one of my New Year's resolutions for 2025 was to cook with a vanilla bean. And I did achieve that. I did use the vanilla bean. I made a vanilla bean creme anglaise. I think that's how you pronounce it, though. It kind of just very custardy. It was supposed to be a sauce. I try to avoid the ice cream as much as I can. I love ice cream, but it is not the best for I find that I don't digest it well at all. It's the thing I probably digest the least well of anything I consume with any regularity. So I was trying to come up with an ice cream alternative, and I made it with the vanilla bean, got the pods. You can open up the pods, scrape the caviar, that's what they call it, out of the pods. Looks incredible, and it tastes good. It tastes very good, but, you know, it was a big production for a sort of for a sauce that was kind of more like a custard, but I did it. You know what? You set goals, you complete goals. That's what happens. You set goals and you complete goals. And, you know, we're in total holiday mode here. We got the elf on the shelf, Snowflake. I've told you about this. We have a black elf on the shelf. Snowflake is an African-American elf. We'll do some more shows, Snowflake content down the road. But Snowflake is back. Master Marlow built a baby Yoda Lego over the weekend that he got, and that's where I found Snowflake as we begin the Elf on the Shelf season. Those of you who don't know this is the new Christmas tradition where the elf, one of Santa's helpers, comes and keeps watch in December, in the lead up to Christmas. And the elf gets placed at a different spot every night. So the elf moves around every night, and the kids can't touch the elf or the magic goes away. So it is one of these ones where Mrs. Dr. Marlow thinks, how could Snowflake find a new spot every single night? And yet somehow she does. A Snowflake, the magical black elf on the shelf, was in baby Yoda's basket today. So that was pretty cool. Did you guys do any Black Friday? I was thinking about something because I've got some big purchases I'm thinking about for the end of the year. And I was thinking about the math on the Black Friday deals. Does it ever apply to anything really great? I got some clothes. I got a few clothing items, and I considered getting a appliance, but I didn't end up pulling the trigger. But I've got my eye on a nice piece of jewelry for Mrs. Dr. Marlow that she's wanted for a while, and I've got my eye on a car that I'm thinking about, and that I probably either want to do this year or next year. And those things don't have Black Friday sales. You don't get a Black Friday deal on stuff that's really nice. They don't do that. I always thought that gave away the game with the late night infomercials where they do if you buy one, then you get a free slap chop now. It's just like nothing when you go to a fancy car dealership or jewelry store or something like that, do they actually say that, hey, you get another free one if you get this now. Doesn't totally make sense to me. What else happened? We went to Zootopia 2, just like everyone else in the world, apparently. It's really interesting to track this because we track box office. At Breitbart, did you guys know, we adhere to the maxim that culture's upstream of politics, as spelled out by our founder and mentor and leader, Andrew. But Zootopia 2, breaking box office records. This is a Disney sequel to a movie that came out 10 years ago that I kind of liked. I kind of like Zootopia 1. And it's about a bunch of animals that work together to fight crime, which, if it sounds absurd, it's because it is. I got to say, this one was not for me, but it's done over $500 million, $556 million opening weekend, which is huge record for animated movies and is one of the biggest openings in the history of movies. And it's not even that great. It's people want to go to the movies if they feel any connection to it at all. And I find this very noteworthy when we've seen some of the worst box office months in the history of cinema. And I have maintained that basically the theatrical experience as a cultural connector kind of died circa the coronavirus, but really before, I think kind of 2019, it was pretty dead, but it doesn't need to be. If you make a certain type of movie, people go out and see it. But one of the hacks with some of these family movies is that I think we got 10 tickets. I think it was 10 because we had another family that was visiting from our cousins who were in town. So it wasn't just like I'm going to Zootopia 2. It was I'm going and then we're bringing 10 other people. That is a huge chunk of money. That is what's the math on that? It's a couple $100 to go see a movie, but it wasn't for me. It was very busy, and the messaging most of the message was okay about inclusivity and all that stuff. But they made the snakes the good guys. So, those of you know this, that I'm a big snake guy. We had our snake versus rat debate earlier in the year, and I'm a steadfast proponent of the rat is the preferable pet of the small rodent-like pet. And the snake reptile, obviously, very low on my list. Again, I draw from biblical principles in this regard, kind of worried about serpents, but they made the snakes the good guys. I thought that was kind of weird. And just the on-the-nose messaging about being overly judgmental. I didn't think any of the jokes for the grown-ups were funny, and they were constant. Like every 10 seconds, there's another joke directed at grown-ups. Didn't laugh at any of them. But the thing is just doing gangbusters at the box office, and I think I'm happy to see it, though I know it's not a recommend for me. Though I got to say, I had one of the most yummy, delicious naps imaginable. I'd taken one of the 11 children to the bathroom, and I was coming back up, and I saw cousin Jim. He'd gone down for a header, and I thought, man, that looks good. And I just followed suit, and I just went right down in there. And you could just let your guard drop a little bit. There were a bunch of parents around, kids were occupied, and I had a great nap during Zootopia 2. So maybe if I didn't like it, maybe I'm not credible. But it was just too busy, way too much plot going on for a cartoon movie. And not my fave, but doing gangbusters, which reveals that if the box office numbers are bad, it's because of what? It's because Hollywood is not making a product that enough people want. It's not that we won't go to the movies. We will. We absolutely will go to the movies. You just got to make something people want. All right. A lot of news happened over the weekend. I should probably mention some of that, before we get too far into the show. It started with a quick one. Fonnie Willis's case got thrown out by the judge. Those of you who read Breaking the Law know how I concluded that chapter. I said that this case should have been thrown out a long time ago, and it's mildly disturbing and hadn't been. But the good news was, as I stated, it will eventually get thrown out, and that will be a good news day for Trump. And I'd be remiss if I didn't make a point to point that out, because that did happen. And it just shows you more vindication that the lawfare against President Trump has largely been lawless. It has been without rooting in any sort of basic principles of law and order, and it's been designed just to destroy Trump on a political basis. And the Fani Willis one was very clear. This is the one where she was trying to make a federal RICO case in a Georgia court, that Trump was running a federal racketeering crime syndicate and in order to rig a federal election, and he was doing so in Georgia with all of these various Georgia politicians and Republican activists, and all sorts of people got caught up in the dragnet, and a lot of people got bankrupt and from having to hire attorneys, and they ended up taking plea deals and just crying uncle, which was it was understandable. I argue it was not acceptable because it's too weak to do that. It gives the left a message that they can easily get scalps from us. But all of it was so corrupt. This, is, of course, was the case with Nathan Wade, where Fani Willis's boyfriend, who was married at the time, then ended up leaving his family, was a family lawyer specializing in divorces and prenups, was put onto the RICO case. He admitted himself he knew nothing about RICO and that he had to bone up on it, he had to study it. And all of a sudden, Nathan Wade's getting White House visits during the middle of the case, which we don't know what was discussed. The White House just has lots of family lawyers from Georgia to come do 8-hour meetings, 2 at a time. Of course, it was coordinated by the Biden White House. I break that down as well in Breaking the Law, and was inevitably going to get thrown out because Fani Willis was very sloppy. She made a lot of really fundamental mistakes throughout the case, where she would release things too early. She would file paperwork improperly. Not a super bright bulb, and someone who has deep activist background. Like, her father was a big activist, and she has this pedigree of left-wing activism. That's where she came from. And this case was always bogus, and it was always doomed to fail. And it was one of the bigger embarrassments throughout the lawfare arc pre-election. And now it's officially gone. And so that's a good thing. Not as good of a thing. The murder of one individual thus far, Sarah Beckstrom, 20 years old, from West Virginia, who was shot by a illegal alien who'd overstayed a visa, Afghan national, it appears, in Washington, D.C., National Guard. She was on patrol trying to keep our city safe. And truly horrible in so many senses of the word. And I'll try to break down all the ways that were horrible. First of all, anyone who is a guest in this country committing violence unprovoked against American law enforcement is horrible. And this person was an illegal alien who had been brought in during the Biden administration's program to try to get in Afghan refugees into our country in order to reward them for something. And he was an intelligence asset. So another blight in the intelligence community. The same intelligence community that we discussed on last week was out there, the Seditious Six, as they are called, led by Mark Kelly and Alyssa Slotkin, 2 people who ran as moderates, who were out there suggesting that the military personnel have an obligation not to do illegal orders from Trump. But what do they regard as illegal? We learned this from Breaking the Law. Would they regard anything that Trump does is illegal? By virtue of the nature that Trump did it, it must be illegal. That's the premise that they start from, is that Trump is guilty until proven innocent. That's how they've always behaved. And so they're threatening people. They said, you must not obey commands that are illegal. So that means our military intelligence personnel are expected to essentially function as trained attorneys, assess the situation, and they're supposed to analyze it completely and determine that what they're being asked to do is illegal, and then not go by those orders, thus essentially having a coup against our government, a mild coup, we'll say. But this is why they're being branded the Seditious Six, because they're being commanded to commit sedition. And then days later, an intelligence asset shoots up 2 National Guardsmen who were there because specifically Trump wanted them to be there in order to protect our nation's capital. So it's all so gnarly and embarrassing, but it's important for us to try to make sure that we understand that we need to make sure that this death, and perhaps another death, the other person who was shot in critical condition, these cannot be in vain. What has to happen here is we have to be able to learn our lessons here. We have to be able to get the ability to try to assess the problem, see where it came from, and do what we can to try to ameliorate the situation. First thing to understand is that this person was brought in through a program where we were essentially rewarding people who would help us at all in Afghanistan in a war that did not succeed by allowing them to come into the country. We criticized this program at the time at Breitbart, saying that this sounds great, but it is a complete myth that we're vetting these refugees. It is a scam to try to replace Americans. It's all part of the Great Replacement. That's all it was. And there is no suggestion that we could potentially vet these people properly, and Joe Biden didn't care. So Joe Biden's botched Afghanistan withdrawal gave them an excuse to import a bunch of people. Then they were given, a lot of them, temporary visas. They were overstaying the visas, obviously. Of course this was going to happen. This 29-year-old Afghan national, and he was not contributing to society. We don't know if he was working. He's reportedly addicted to playing Xbox video games on his couch. But the Democrats don't enforce the laws. They don't believe in law and order. So Biden's disastrous pullout. This guy's a CIA intelligence asset. We have no idea what he actually gave us that was of use. Comes in, just hanging out, and decides he's going to go on a murder spree against American law enforcement. None of this is acceptable. There's blood in Joe Biden's hand. There's blood on Alejandro Mayorkas' hands. But this is why it's important that we start denationalizing some of these people who should not be here and don't want to be here. If you're someone who hates this country and you're here, we need to get you out. We need to make this a priority. We need to expedite this process immediately. I think Trump is starting to understand this. He's speaking very plainly on the matter, which I like. But we need to make sure that there is accountability for people who are calling on intelligence and defense communities to undermine this president. And we also need to make sure that people who are here illegally get dismissed. They get thrown out. We need to get thrown out of the country immediately. We need to accelerate deportations and crack down even more on illegal immigration. So I got some audio I want to share with you and some of the things that's going on. Mark Kelly was out there on the Sunday shows trying to defend himself. Let's hear how this went.
You can certainly go to the judge, advocate generals, the lawyers, and have a discussion about it. If you don't have time, you just say simply, I'm not going to do that. That's against the law.
It puts a lot of burden on the troops to make a decision in real time.
It puts a tremendous amount of burden on officers in the military, but that is their responsibility. And they can figure out, a reasonable person can tell something that is legal and something that is illegal.
It's just not true. We have constant disputes about what's legal and what's illegal. That's why we have such a big law community. That's why the lawfare against President Trump is allowed to go on. That's why every major corporation and every government agency is loaded up with lawyer after lawyer after lawyer and layers of lawyers and lawyers who answer to lawyers and chief lawyers to manage the lawyers. All this is because it is sometimes challenging to understand what's law and what's not. If the speed limit says 65 and you're going 90, obviously that's against the law. But again, there are exceptions to that too. If you're a law enforcement personnel in a chase trying to save lives, that's the whole point of this thing, is that commanding people to not do orders, you must not obey illegal orders. How do they know? All they know is what they are commanded to do by the people who were installed democratically, i.e. Donald Trump and his administration, to lead our defense. He's the commander-in-chief of our military. And he was democratically elected by every measure. Popular vote, electoral college, swing states, whatever is your favorite bellwether to make his election legitimate. It was. And so he gets to do stuff as president. It's not all illegal.
So would you refuse these specific orders to strike drug boats if you were still in uniform?
Okay, so now we're on the Venezuelan drug boat situation, which we'll get his answer. But this is another thing that's taking place right now, playing out. And I've got a theory on this that I will elaborate on once we finish the answer. But put a pin in this.
Well, the difference between the initial strike and what is being reported, as a second strike, and those things are different. I think this administration has tied themselves in knots, the explanations that we have received on how this is all legal. And I was saying weeks ago, my concern is with the service members, that we're going to put these individuals in a really, really tough decision, in a tough place. And they may find.
Who do you think is making things tougher? The senators and congresspeople who are saying, don't listen to the commander in chief, or the commander-in-chief just giving orders?
They find out, down the road that they did something that is illegal. It is not fair to them. That's why we need presidents and secretary of defense who understand the Constitution, who understand the rule of law, and have more respect for the Constitution and the country and service members than the whims of a president.
It's amazing. We have such a low bar for politicians. He's just not a bright guy. And just what an unbelievable head of skull he's got. One of the most pristine skulls I've ever seen. In those of you missing the visuals, Mark Kelly's is very striking. President Trump sees his stuff much more clearly, but I'll tell you about Venezuela and these drug boats. I think we got a trap here on our hands. I think the president has set a trap for people. And so just be very cautious here, particularly if you feel like you've guessed a couple wrong lately. But it feels like what's going on here is that Trump is targeting these drug boats. And people are objecting, suggesting that he needs a declaration of war, which he never gets, and no one ever gets declarations of war, and is not necessarily an act of war against a country in of itself because he's just blocking drugs from entering the country illegally. And he's not blown up any fishermen boats. I'll tell you why we know this, because once he does, the media is going to be flooded with it if he just blows up a boat of some fishermen. The boats are completely different. They look different. They behave different. And apparently we have great intel from the beloved intel community that's allowing us to identify these boats as they're coming. And the locals, we follow local media at Breitbart News. Until recently, we had a reporter in Venezuela full time. And he sprung himself. He got free. He's in Europe now, Caleb Caruso. But we pay closer attention to this region than anyone in conservative media. And they're all saying these are drug boats. Like that's what's going on. So the Pentagon has not been entirely forthcoming about what's going on, but I also feel like they're drawing everyone out to be hysterical, everyone out to act as though we're going to do regime change war in Venezuela, which, by the way, regime change in Venezuela would not be the end of the world. I don't want us to spend blood and treasure on it, but it's a narco-terror state and is no legitimacy from any sort of, Western norms. And they are flooding our country with drugs, and they've got a lot of oil that could potentially be of value to someone who manages it better, even if it's just being sold and becomes refined more easily and in part of the global commerce. So, I'm not saying it'd be the end of the world, but I'm saying that I don't think that's going to happen. I don't want it to happen. Regime change wars. I don't think that looks good. But overall, this does feel like one of those 97-3 issues where we bomb the drugs before they get into America. 100,000 fentanyl deaths a year in this country. 100,000 in this country, United States of America. So long as that's the case, I think the vast majority of people are going to be completely fine with the Department of War, not Department of Defense, Senator Kelly, blowing up some of those boats. So feels like a solid one for Trump. And I think that he likes this footing that he's on. And it fits into all roads leading towards immigration. We'll do a lot more healthcare discussion in the rest of the year. That's immigration related. Affordability, which will be a focal point for next year, also immigration related. But the big reporting over the weekend about how even the New York Times admitted this, that Somali nationals were raised in a culture of stealing following this massive welfare fraud that's been revealed in Minnesota. So there's been a lot of reporting. Christopher Rufo, who's a popular reporter online, was leading the way on this. But there's been a lot of reporting lately on all this welfare fraud through this organization, through organizations such as something called Feeding Our Future, run by Minneapolis area Somali migrants. Prosecutors say that organization bilked $250 million from the state in child food assistance. And there's others like it. So we could be north of $1 billion, could be billions, but hundreds of millions minimum of Somali-based organizations that are bilking the taxpayer, and it's getting found out to the point where even the New York Times is mentioning it. And then we had a story also over the weekend that a Afghan national who entered the United States under Biden's Operation Allies Welcome, the same one where this shooter who killed at least one National Guardsman in Washington, this time an Afghan national freed under Biden arrested after a TikTok bomb threat in Fort Worth. He made a bomb threat on TikTok in Fort Worth. Mohammed Dawood Alokoze posting a video on TikTok on himself saying he's going to blow up a building, Fort Worth area. So it's just, they're not sending their best and we're letting them stay. It's not acceptable. It's not okay. The Great Replacement, of course, is real. And we're starting to see people who are on top of this stuff. The Minnesota Department of Homeland Security workers are blaming Tim Walz for the massive fraud, saying he's 100% responsible for the Somalian fraud, meaning he was aware of it and turned a blind eye. The group, Minnesota Department of Health and Human Service Employees, posted on X, Tim Walz 100% responsible for the massive fraud. We let Tim Walz know of fraud early on, hoping for a partnership in stopping the fraud, but no, we got the opposite response. Tim Walz systematically retaliated against whistleblowers using monitoring, threats, repression, and did his best to discredit fraud reports instead of partnerships. We got the full weight of retaliation by Tim Walz, certain DFL members, and an indifferent mainstream media. It's scary, isolating, and left us wondering who we can turn to. Just horrifying. Glad that they're blowing the whistle. And Trump responded the only way he could by calling out Tim Walz in very plain terms, which I'm sure you guys are aware of this. But if you're not, you're gonna want to hear it. But first, I got to tell you about today's sponsor, which is Home Title Lock. If you're a homeowner in America, you need to listen to this. The FBI has been warning about a type of real estate fraud on the rise called title theft, and your equity is the target. Here's how it works. Criminals forge your signature in a single document, use a fake notary stamp, and file it with the county. And just like that, on record, they own your home. Using your ownership, they can take out loans against your equity or even sell your property. And you won't know about it until foreclosure and collection notices show up in the mail. That's why I've partnered with Home Title Lock, so you can protect your equity and find out today if you're already a victim. Use my promo code Marlow at HometitleLock.com, and you'll get a free title history report and a free trial of their $1 million triple lock protection. Here's the program. Check this out. This is the good stuff. 24/7 monitoring of your title records, urgent alerts for any changes, and if fraud occurs, their U.S.-based restoration team will spend up to $1 million to fix it. So that's a great program. It's going to protect you from something. Everyone knows so much of people's wealth is tied up in real estate and their equity. And this is just a way to bilk it all in one fell swoop. And you've got to be diligent here. That's why they got their triple lock protection. Super easy. You go to HometitleLock.com/Alex Marlow, HometitleLock.com/Alex Marlow, and you can use promo code Marlow, and you'll get that free trial, a free trial of their triple lock protection. I know why you wouldn't want it. HometitleLock.com, code Marlow, or HometitleLock.com/Alex Marlow. All right, so Trump getting into it with Walz, using colorful terminology, the type of terminology that I tend to love. Let's hear some of it. So I thought I had good audio to play, but I don't have it. But the point is, he's calling Tim Walz a retard. That's what's happening here. He called Tim Walz a retard, and he did this on Truth Social. And then he was gaggling with the press on Air Force One, and he was asked, do you stand by calling Tim Walz a retard? And Trump responded, yeah, there's something wrong with Walz. And I love this so much because I love how he just gave it a second, and he thought, should I stand by this? Is this an opportunity to apologize? Maybe send an olive branch. But no, we're taking back retard. I'm calling him retarded, and I'm just so happy because it's just game on now. I got to say, it's certainly a word that I like to use privately. Obviously, I don't mean to insult anyone with mental handicaps, and the people I call retarded are generally way worse than your average mentally handicapped person. So that's not what it's about. It never has been. It's about the control of language and people who are easily offended. And Trump saying, I'm calling Tim Walz a retard because he is just, it's so beautiful. It's a great moment for free speech. We owe Trump so much in this regard. And I just appreciate him for not just governing, but also taking back language from the language police. And I have a big discussion of this with Don Jr. on his Triggered podcast. I don't know when it's coming out, so you got to pay attention to it. It's on Rumble, and I get it on Apple as well. But we talk a lot about this, Trump, how great it is that Trump is taking back the words retard. And I mean, it's totally genuine. All right. So Walz responded to this on TV, and I thought this was too much. Check this out.
Look, Donald Trump insulting me is a badge of honor for me, but I think we all know, as both as an educator for a couple decades and as a parent, using that term is just so damaging. It's hurtful.
It's not damaging remotely. It's just not. We're all too sensitive. We have so many big problems in this country. It's just the policing of the word retard, which is just fundamentally fun to say and is a great insult. And it just grabs you by the lapels and makes you feel insulted if anyone calls you retard. I can tell you, it's not a badge of honor. I will say this. If any of you call me a retard, I don't want to be called a retard. I don't want to. That's why it's effective. If I do something stupid and you say that was retarded, it's going to hurt my feelings. That's why it's powerful. So it's not a badge of honor. And for him to say that and say, oh, it was so offensive. He's so lame. And this is why Trump's got all their goats. And we need to just take advantage and keep running up the score while we got the chance. Trump also suggested Ilhan Omar should be thrown out of the country over the claim that she married her brother, which seems to be true. He's talking about remigration of people who are in this country, shouldn't be here, don't want to be here. It's a beautiful thing. Check it.
What do you mean by reverse migration?
It means get people out that are in our country. Get them out of here. I want to get them out. We got a lot of people in our country that shouldn't be here, and they came in through Biden, and he was the worst president in the history of our country. But the single biggest thing he did was allow millions of people into our country that shouldn't be here. Drug dealers, prisons were opened up and allowed to come into our country. You take a look at the people that were allowed to come into our country. We're paying a big price for it, and we will for years to come, including the recent killer of two wonderful National Guards people. And I'll tell you what, that animal should not have been allowed to come into our country.
Yeah, he's right. And let me read the quote. It means get people out that are in our country, get them out of here. I want to get them out. We got a lot of people in our country that shouldn't be here, and they came in through Biden. We're paying a big price for it. It's just a great quote, and this is a clear-eyed attitude. He's using simple language. This is why he's such an effective communicator, is that a lot of people who observe the news, who see what happened, who may have heard the story, may have had their Thanksgiving a little bit dampened by the assassination, the terrorist attack, whatever you want to call it, in D.C., hearing your president say, we want to get the people out who did this is beautiful. And we're not going to be sympathetic to the terrorists. We're going to be sympathetic to the American citizens. People with their lives cut down by animals who should not have been here. And if they were allowed to be here, that they were supposed to leave. So we're going to re-immigrate, get people out. The Great Replacement is a very real thing, and the left is now starting to be open about it. There's a guy named Wajahat Ali who's an obnoxious online person, but he's also written the New York Times. Like, he's got a byline in the New York Times, so he's a mainstream leftist person, and he had a pretty viral video on X, the Everything app, that came out, and he talks about the superiority of brown people to white people. It's one of the most nakedly racist things I've seen in a while. I want you to listen to this, and let's study this together. Check this out.
You have lost. You lost. The mistake that you made is you let us in the first place. See, that's the thing with brown people. I'm going to say this as a brown person. There's a lot of us. Like a lot. There's like 1.2 billion in India. There's more than 200 million in Pakistan. There's like 170 million in Bangladesh. Those are just the people there. I'm even talking about the folks who are expats or immigrants. There's a bunch of us. And we breed. We're a breeding people. And the problem is you let us in 1965. There were a few of us beforehand. But once you let one of us in, you know what happens with brown folks? Our grandmother comes, our grandfather comes, our uncle comes, our aunt comes.
So let's talk about so far what he's saying. So basically he's declaring a race war between India and Pakistan and Bangladesh versus white America in America. So, which is pretty amazing because we're not trying to all move into India. That the people in these countries, I think he's Pakistani, coming to America, and they want to just seize America and take over America, and they're going to beat us. He's phrasing it as we lost. So he's literally setting it up as a us versus them race war, and that is his framing. That is his framing of what's going on. And then he announces how they're going to beat us with chain migration. Something that I got to say in the first Trump administration was the number one priority of Stephen Miller. So something that he was very keenly aware of. I spoke to him about this in the White House a number of times. But it is chain migration where we don't just let one immigrant in, we let in their whole family once they're here. That's how they're doing it. And so anyone who tells you the Great Replacement is not real, just try to save this quote, try to find it, clip it from the show. This is their announcing that chain migration is the key to having the great replacement to replace the whites because he doesn't like the whites. And the whites have lost to the browns. It somehow gets even crazier from here. Here it goes.
Cousin comes, our second cousin comes, our third cousin comes. Then we have kids, a bunch of kids. And then guess what? Some white women, you know, the Western civilization women, the pure women, the American women, quote unquote, the Rust Belt women, the real women, they like some of us brown folks. We don't take them. They come to us. So we're embedded. We are everywhere. We are everywhere. I've traveled this country. I'm going to speak as a brown person. Brown people are everywhere. There will be a Patel Motel or there will be a Desi restaurant everywhere. I want you to realize this. You have lost. Your story is a shitty story filled with misery. It's filled with bland chicken. It's filled with terrible, terrible dry ass meat. Your music sucks. All your culture sucks. Nobody. That's why the kids like listen to black people and their music. That's why the kids love Latinos. You're part.
Okay, so first of all, he insults white women and women in flyover countries. So just know that the mainstream left hates white women, and white women are a lot of the reason why the Democrats are winning elections. Is that single white women in particular seem to be the main demographic. That's the backbone. I think in black women as well, but the single white women are one of the main backbones of the Democrat Party right now. And listen to how you're being talked to. You're being talked to as if you're second-class citizens by whoever this guy is. Online commentator speaking on behalf of all the billions of Indians and Pakistanis. So, but note how then he lumps in, first of all, he says we have no culture. Our story is a horrible story. Our story is an incredible story, a story of freedom and vanquishing evils all over the world, and a billion people coming together to try to create a country that has done the greatest good for the greatest number in the history of the world, including him. He lives here. So, but our story is a horrible story. And then we also have like bland chicken, which is, I did find that kind of funny. Some of our foods, but we're a melting pot for all sorts of ethnic sort of food. So we can have fun food. But he lumps in why we like Latinos and blacks. First of all, they're moving in our direction politically, particularly Latinos. But him lumping in Indians with Latinos, it just shows you how racist it is. That his suggestion that brown people from Mexico, for example, and brown people from India have more in common than they would with white people. I don't know if that's true. This is just news to me. If your skin tone, literally judging people by their skin tone, that's how alliances are built. Wouldn't you be insulted if you're a brown person listening to this and thinking that you're just treated the same? There's no cultural difference between a brown person from south of our border and a brown person in India. That's sort of what he's suggesting.
Our parties suck because they're monochromatic. Our parties have better food, better music, better looking women.
I don't know if who's setting the beauty standards for the planet just you answer that question, rhetorical question. So I don't know what he's talking about. He's just trying to trigger people. And I'm not triggered by it, but I want to warn you that a lot of what the left does is they operate in code. They speak in code. And this is them not speaking code. We know they're obsessed with race. Here's a guy announcing he's obsessed with race. We know they want the great replacement. Now him literally saying, we're replacing you and we're beating you. We know they're using chain migration. Now he's announcing that's how we're going to do it. And they don't respect anything that was here. They think our food's bad and our music's bad. It just, I don't know. American culture has dominated the world. The defining medium on the planet for the last century was movies, which is by and large an white American male dominated medium. Not say there isn't great cinema from around the world. Of course there is, but it was dominated by white American males. Music, rock and roll. I mean, there's so many things where there's a nuance to the argument that he's obviously not. He doesn't want to go there. I got to say, I've listened to a lot of music. I'm actually quite cultured on the music front. I'm a music minor at Berkeley. I played the gamelan. This is true, which is a Javanese instrument, or not instrument. It's really sort of a series of instruments, set of instruments. I played the rabab, which was a string instrument, and it's not superior to Western music, Western Europe in particular, but it's not superior to American music at all. So I know what he's talking about, where just like all this great music, all the musical innovation is not coming from that part of the world. So not say I love I'm not a Taylor Swift fan, whatever is super popular with, white America. I don't know. I don't love country music. It's okay with it. I'm okay with it. I don't love it. We have debate here, but it's just so smug and sanctimonious that he announces our culture is better and we're going to subsume your culture and beat it. So very important to note that that's how they think. And that is the logical conclusion where things are going. And if we don't slow down the left, that's who's going to be running it. People like Wajahat Ali and people like Jasmine Crockett. We got some Jasmine Crockett. Crockett is still taking a lot of licks right now because she announced that Lee Zeldin was taking money from Jeffrey Epstein, but he got the wrong Epstein. And she's been continuing to, the media is interested here. So let's see what's going on.
Congresswoman, it wouldn't be a conversation with us if I didn't quickly put you on the spot on something. You made a little bit of news last week when you mistakenly accused Lee Zeldin and another Republican
I didn't
accepting money from Jeffrey Epstein, but it was a different Jeffrey Epstein according to the financial records. Do you want to? I don't want to give you the opportunity to amend that. And
I have no amendments. When I was on the floor, for those that don't know how it works, basically they decided to bring this privilege motion up, and they decided that they wanted to kick Stacey off of her committees because Stacey had received Stacey Plaskett because she had received a donation from Jeffrey Epstein. I had maybe 20 minutes. We researched the FEC, and because I like to speak with specificity, that's kind of what comes with being an attorney. I made clear that there was a Jeffrey Epstein. They knew on the other side that I did not have time to.
Isn't that unbelievable? It's because she's an attorney. She loves specificity. That's what this was all about. And she was so specific, she got the wrong Epstein. There's no apology here. There's no my bad. She's not laughing at herself. No humility whatsoever. No honesty whatsoever. So beautiful. Let's continue.
Actually pull up and actually research, especially since that particular one that Lee Zeldin got up in an uproar about was specifically out of the New York area. We know that he was out of that area. So, and this obviously was not done post Jeffrey Epstein's life. So I made sure that I said a Jeffrey Epstein.
But you were trying to insinuate that it was a the
I absolutely was insinuating that it could be possible. That is true. But the point is, I never said that it was that specific one because I did not have the adequate time to do it. And
she didn't have the adequate time to figure out it was the wrong Jeffrey Epstein. Then don't say anything. There was no one who demanded her to announce that Lee Zeldin took money from a guy named Jeffrey Epstein. Let's see here a little more.
So the Jeffrey Epstein has stepped forward, and that's not like, you know, a normal name.
Jeffrey Epstein is one of the most normal names you could have. What could be more normal than Jeffrey Epstein? That's a definition, a super common first name and a super common last name.
And I think that what would have been problematic is if I would have claimed that, say, that happened and it legitimately never happened. So ultimately, he cleared the record.
But it didn't ever happen. He got money from a different Jeffrey Epstein. It's not the guy who is a pedophile who was running international finance schemes. Probably involved in intelligence, foreign or domestic, in doing influence operations to blackmail people. Like there wasn't any of that in this other Jeffrey Epstein. So why would you conflate the two? Let's see if we get any more from the MSNBC crowd.
Record. I have not researched further. I've not talked to this doctor.
But you can agree that Lee Zeldin didn't receive money.
I can
She's
agree.
not talking to the doctor, Jeffrey Epstein. Isn't that rich? Who needs her to talk to the doctor, Jeffrey Epstein? Such a non sequitur. It's just amazing to see their brains operate. The people who are just dug in on the left and won't tell the truth, refuse to tell the truth.
Lee Zeldin has said that he's not received money from the Jeffrey Epstein. Absolutely.
Amazing. Amazing. Good for MS Now for bringing it up. I wonder why they keep putting her on the spot for it. Maybe they think their Crockett time's over. Maybe they think it's Crockett's run its course. So perhaps. But I got to say that this is why we really need to be focused, because if we're going to allow for a lot of fissures on the right, then we're going to have the people who want the great replacement, who want to use such nasty tactics as falsely naming Jeffrey Epstein as a donor to you. Those people are going to be running the country. So we got to be careful. And there's some good news that's out there. We were looking at gas prices, lowest level in 4 years. So there's some positive economic indicators. I caught this clip of Melania Trump announced her White House Christmas decor. And there's a video I spot online which juxtaposed Biden and Jill Biden's Christmas, juxtaposed with Melania Trump's. you're going to miss some of the visuals. I'll try to describe some of this to you, but if you're not watching on YouTube or Rumble, you're going to miss some of this. But let me roll this for you. Okay, so Melania's got classic traditional Christmas, white, blue, green, just everything you would remember from an ideal childhood Christmas, or maybe that perfect Christmas movie that you would throw on growing up. And on the left side of your screen is Joe Biden's Christmas. It is a theater kid, obviously a black woman, and wearing absurd garb, dancing down an absurd hallway. Melania's got, again, a lot. Now we're seeing a lot of reds come into the picture, a lot of real traditional Americana. It just looks like the White House, very iconic imagery, a beautiful invitation to something with Christmas theme. And then in the Biden frame, there's all these people in incredibly silly hats darting through. I mean, you almost got to see it to believe. I'm trying to pause the screen. One of the absurd ones, this person has a whole flower on top of their head, and it is just a fever dream for whoever was in charge of the Glee Club at your school. I mean, this is exactly what this would be in their, if they had unlimited budget. That one could have been a furry in the Biden video. Ooh, Be Best ornament for Melania. I mean, it's look, the Biden one, it's the gayest Christmas you've ever seen. And I stopped this with there's an image of Jesus on the screen in the Trump Christmas, and it's just all of this gay dancing going on. It just is. It's just what it is. And on the Biden one, just trying to make Christmas some sort of a homosexual thing is obviously the objective with Biden, pandering the LGBTs as they're known to do. And Melania is making it all about America and about Jesus and about being best. And that's classy. It's just a total difference. What says Christmas to you? Is it the Virgin Mary? Is it Jesus Christ? Is it a beautiful Christmas tree? Or is it the gayest person you've ever seen dancing as the Nutcracker and jumping up and down? I mean, it's what it is. And I say this because that's what is the most accurate description. Is I'm not trying to, anyone who knows me knows that I have so many wonderful gay people in my life, but it's like, but trying to insist that we have to think about gay stuff all the time. That's what the Biden administration did constantly, even at Christmas. Never took a chance to be classy and unifying. Always as an in-your-face culture war type of thing. And ironically, is now a culture warrior approach for Melania. Let's do classics. Let's do beautiful. Let's do Americana. Let's do a throwback to tradition and to a simpler time. And just beautiful stuff, as always. She's so classy and amazing. Love that Melania, and one of our... There's so many great Trumps, but one of the best. Clearly one of the best. She got a new production company, too, so we got to see what happens there. All right, there's more on my mind, but I think that's good for today's show. That'll be it. Thanks to Misty. Thanks to all. John Cassio pulls clips for us. All of you, make sure you subscribe and telling 10,000 friends and family members about The Marlow Show. Talk to you next time.